Good morning, Commissioner Graves. Good morning, Commissioner Sims. I'm saying good morning. We just crossed over into afternoon.
Afternoon.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm going to wait just one more minute for all the commissioners to be able to enter their space here. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Augustine, Chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission, and I would like to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin, as I do in every meeting, by repeating the mandate Commissioners Fain, Walkinshaw, Graves, and Sims have agreed to undertake. The mandate of the Commission, set out in Washington State Redistricting Act, is to accomplish state legislative and congressional redistricting in accordance with the Washington State Constitution. The bipartisan commission was created to listen to the public every 10 years so that districts would be drawn by statute and with public input. The commission takes this charge seriously. Should our process fail and another authority must create a redistricting plan for Washington, the input provided by the public in this process would be lost. As I do at every meeting, I would also like to repeat the mission and values of the commission. Commissioners Fain, Walkinshaw, Graves, and Sims voluntarily and collectively agreed to at the beginning of this process to provide an open, transparent, credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there is access for everyone. To conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. To meet the deadline outlined by law and produce the best possible maps. I would like to take a moment to share a few thoughts addressing the voting members of the commission about the state of our work. We are now 21 days away from our deadline. As chair, it is my charge to see this commission to a successful conclusion. I see a successful conclusion as nothing less than securing a new legislative district map and a new congressional district map for the people of Washington to live under for the next 10 years, and to get those maps done in time to get them to the legislature per our statutory requirement. 49 legislative district boundaries and 10 congressional district boundaries must be drawn before the Supreme Court takes jurisdiction from us and before we become the first redistricting commission in Washington to not finish the work. I will consider any outcome that ends up with us surrendering jurisdiction of this process to another power, the Supreme Court, a failure. We have received a great deal of guidance from the residents of Washington on their redistricting interests in general and their opinions on the draft maps that each of you released to the public. This is because, consistent with your mandate and your values and mission statements, we engaged in extensive outreach to include as many residents in Washington as are willing to engage and share their input. The people have given us so much counsel on what they want, either through their participation in public meetings, emails, and calls made to the commission, comments placed on the old district plans and on the draft plans that you released, or the drawing of their own maps and communities of interest. Our content has been seen on screens over 2 million times on Facebook alone. Nearly 750,000 people have watched a total of 15,905 hours of our YouTube content. More than 334,000 unique Instagram accounts have seen our content. That has resulted in significant input from the public. We've had more than 400 testifiers, people who have come to meetings to testify to you face to face. We've had comments on your draft maps of 2,230. We've had more than 5,000 comments emailed to you. We have had 1,657 maps that have been begun by the residents of Washington. These numbers represent the magnitude of the counsel that we have all received from those for whom you are drawing these maps. So many civic-minded people took time out of their lives to educate themselves and engage with this process in good faith. Now we come down to the end, and it is time for us to do our part, which is getting into concrete negotiations on district boundaries and using the people's input to deliver these maps as expected. In order to honor their efforts, I'd like to ask each of you publicly to start talking in earnest about the final maps. I have reached out to each of you in hopes of starting the negotiation process in earnest, as we have many hard decisions to make and not much time in which to make them. If we fail to deliver maps on time, all that time and energy spent by so many to engage with us goes away. The court will be under no obligation to take any of it into account if responsibility is transferred to its jurisdiction. Our failure may also result in further erosion of the people's trust in democratic institutions at a time in our nation's history when we can ill afford it. As a bipartisan and an independent commission, we have an opportunity to model the kind of honest, transparent, kind, and authentic civic leadership necessary to build the trust and faith democracy requires to thrive. So let me remind you of the commitments that we made to each other when we started this journey in early 2021. We promised to conduct a process grounded in statute, to negotiate in good faith, and to meet the deadline defined by law. We have made history by the number of people we've managed to engage in this process. Let's not make additional history by being the first commission in the state to cede its responsibility to the Supreme Court. The decision now rests in your hands. It is the mandate of the 4 voting commissioners to devise a final redistricting plan and draw final maps. It is not the mandate of the legislature, the caucuses, political parties, or the press. It is your mandate, and the decision now rests in your hands. I would now like to call roll. Commissioner Paul Graves.
Present.
Commissioner Brady Walkinshaw.
Present.
Commissioner Joe Fain.
Here.
Commissioner April Sims.
Present.
I would like to call for the approval of meeting minutes for the meeting held on October 18, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. The motion passes. I would like to call on each of you and ask you to share progress on our process from your point of view. I will call on you in the following order: Commissioner Walkinshaw, Commissioner Fain, Commissioner Sims, and Commissioner Graves. Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Thank you so much, Chair. I've been encouraged by the conversations that a number of us have been having over the last couple of weeks, and also encouraged by a lot of the input that we've had from the public. We've been thinking a lot about how we draw a federally compliant district that will comply with the Voting Rights Act in the Yakima Valley. That's extremely important. We've continued to have good discussions, so I've just been appreciative to my fellow commissioners for the conversations we've been having thus far.
Thank you. Commissioner Fain.
Yeah, I'd agree with my colleague. I think we've made some good progress here in the last few weeks, had some very frank conversations, and shared a lot of good information about where our values are with regard to where we think a good compromise might be. Our last public hearing was very helpful to help provide some input on the various parts of our maps that needed a little bit more input from the public, but there's frequent and positive conversations going on between the various commissioners. And so I'm actually in a more optimistic spot right now than I've been at any point during the process. So good.
Thank you. Commissioner Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just echo what my fellow commissioners have said. The conversations have been really helpful in determining, where our priorities are and where the sticky parts in, between our maps are. And I'm certainly looking forward to making sure that we, complete our work on time.
Great. And Commissioner Graves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same. We've been having really fruitful negotiations. I think we're all aware that we're 3 weeks away from our deadline. I think we have commitment to get this done and to get it done by that time and not to have this go to the Supreme Court. I've been grateful for that. I've been grateful for my fellow commissioners for a lot of candid and frank discussions. And I am similarly as optimistic as I've been throughout this process.
Great. I would now like to move on to the portion of our agenda for public comment. You are always welcome to sign up for public comment, and I want to thank the people who have joined us today to share with us. Sean, how many people do we have signed up today?
Chair, we had 11 individuals sign up, and we have 8 in our meeting who are ready to testify.
Great, thank you. So each speaker will be assigned 2 minutes. Our tech support specialist, Sean Murray, will facilitate public comment. Sean will call your name, at which time your status in Zoom will change from observer to panelist. When Sean calls your name, you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and a countdown clock will appear on your screen. At the end of your allotted time, you will be muted. We realize that 2 minutes is a very brief time in which to share your comments, and we're interested in what you have to say and urge you to send your written comments to us via the following email, comment@redistricting.wa.gov. Sean?
Yes, Chair, we are going to begin with David Morales. David, if you can please turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Sure. Thank you very much for having this meeting. I think that Master Matt Barretto of UCLA has really provided some great feedback and information to us by thinking outside the box. Many of us in the Yakima Valley have been aware of the need for a CVAP, citizen of voting age population majority district. And getting there has been difficult, trading one neighborhood for another, moving things here and there. Everything has required a lot of conversations with the community. And what Matt Barretto did was, in some ways think outside the box, think outside the Yakima County box, to see if there are other neighborhoods that are similarly situated that could also be part of a CVAP, Latino citizen voting majority district. And he pointed at Grant County and Pasco as really 2 examples in some of his maps. And so I want to thank him for really showing those possibilities. I don't have an answer. I don't come to the commission with an answer about where to go or exactly how to do it, except to say that we really hope that the map that comes out is a CVAP, citizen voting age majority map. And I personally hope that, of course, we keep the Yakima Nation together, because that has been an expressed desire in all of our community meetings from the very start. And so I think it's been very clear that that is a desire that community members have been dedicated to for the entire process up until now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean?
Yes, Chair. We will next go to Scott. Scott, I see your video is on. If you can just unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Scott Shawcroft and I live in Seattle. I graduated from the University of Washington with a computer engineering degree and have worked as a software engineer for over a decade. Thank you for your participation in this bipartisan commission and for listening to so many Washingtonians in the process. Today, I wanted to suggest an addition to the resolution that will be transmitted to the legislature in order to improve the security and reliability of the file sharing process. In the previous meeting, I heard discussion of including the precise file name of the final version of the map as a means for stating the correct version. In addition to including the file name, I suggest including a checksum as well. A checksum is a very large number that is computed based on the contents of the file. Publishing the checksum along with the file name allows anyone with the file to verify that the contents of the file match the original. To verify their copy, one would rerun the checksum on their copy of the file, and the resulting checksum should match the published copy. Any modifications to the file, whether malicious or unintentional, can be detected with the checksum and a correct copy of the file can be obtained. In practice, this means that the resolution would say for each file, for example, with file name legislative final.shape and the SHA-256 checksum is 123456 and letters that encode that big number. The file name and checksum would be replaced, of course. Each of the commissioners and staff would run the checksum over their copies of the file to ensure that they all had the same version before doing the final vote on the resolution. Any further changes of the file would require updating the checksum also. Thank you for your time, and hopefully I can answer any questions you have about the process.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time today.
Chair, next we are going to go to Gary. Gary, I see your video is on. If you can please unmute and begin your testimony.
Thanks, Scott. I heard all that and I didn't understand very much of it, if at all. I hope the commissioners got some of it because I certainly didn't. Yeah, security is always a problem with maps. You know, and I looked at the maps and they weren't enough detail for me. I couldn't tell the streets in Seattle where the lines were drawn and where they weren't. And I don't know if it was just me or if other people were having the same problem, but yeah. So now, are we going to have another chance? I know the 22nd was a cutoff, so that's it, right? The public doesn't really have any more input except for this meeting, I believe. And so, thank you guys for all the hard work. It's been interesting anyway.
Thank you very much. We will absolutely advertise if we have additional special meetings. So thank you for asking that. I appreciate that. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Our final testifier for this panel will be Todd. Todd, if you can please unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Todd Bricks. I had the opportunity to, from scratch, prepare an entire state map and submitted it several weeks ago down into every single precinct level. I'm sure there are many considerations to take into account in terms of building a map, and I certainly don't expect mine to be one chosen or even seriously considered, but I did want to highlight a couple key things by going through that process that I think would be relevant to the commissioners in establishing a final plan. First, it's possible to have congressional districts across Washington state that entirely encompass the 70 largest municipal governments in the state, all contiguously. And that includes Seattle being represented by an entire district rather than being divided up into 3. It means larger cities like Tacoma and Everett can not only have their own cities, but their larger associated counties associated with them into a single district. And it's very valuable and actually mandated by state legislation to highly consider both compactness and community orientation, such that communities have their voices consolidated in a single voice rather than split into many different congressional districts where their voice is diluted. So I would strongly consider and recommend to each of you, if the plan is called the 3C plan, I believe it's a plan that attempts at least to keep communities intact, compact, so they can have a single voice and a single point of accountability, most importantly, for their congressional representatives. Thank you very much for the enormous amount of time each of you have volunteered to this process. It's an extremely important one. And I wish you the very best luck in coming to terms with a very difficult problem. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to now ask the commissioners if you have comments or questions for the people on this panel. All right, seeing none, Sean, please call the next folks.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Jeffrey Olson. Jeffrey, if you're able to turn your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Yes, this. I would like to thank the panel for their comments and the maps we have seen. I would prefer that the state create a map, ongoing running map that shows which congressional districts have already been done and which legislative districts done. So we know ahead of time before the final. That would create more public interest in the process, and it would show how fast you are going. The other problem, not all the press prints accurate maps. We had a case here in Spokane during the year that the paper published a bogus map. And that's what I would say, we need safeguards that verifies what maps are true and which maps are bogus. And then I'll get back the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We appreciate your comments. Sean?
Yes, Chair. We're going to go next to Joseph. Joseph, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Thank you. Well, commissioners, again, my name is Joseph Shoji Lockman, policy analyst at Asian Counseling and Referral Service, and also with Redistricting Justice for Washington. I wanted to reinforce the point that David Morales had been helping to make earlier, just really emphasizing the need to take into consideration the citizen voting age population when forming the maps, especially with regard to the Yakima area, and want to support that point. ACRS is also part of the Asian Pacific Islander Coalition of Washington, and our folks in our Yakima chapter are also highly concerned about this issue. I want to express appreciation to Commissioners Sins and Walkinshaw for their willingness to ensure that they're creating proposals that will in all likelihood be in compliance with the Voting Rights Act, but also I have deep disappointment with Commissioners Grays and Fain for their lack of statements saying that they would actually create maps that are in compliance with, that show, compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. So again, a deep concern there because the communities that we work to serve and that we're concerned for in terms of the organizations that we're at. Also, though, with regard to that, I hope that all four commissioners will take into consideration the points that we've made about Chinatown International District and South Seattle, especially communities of color, Asian American communities in those areas. I'm worried that we're worried again that they will be taken out of the 9th district or split up into multiple districts on the congressional as well as the legislative level. And I hope that the commissioners will ensure that the CID in South Seattle remain in the 9th district with other communities of color in that region. Thank you.
Thanks very much for spending some time with us today. Sean?
Yes, Chair. Catherine, if you can begin your testimony. I see your video's on. If you can just unmute and whenever you're ready.
Hi, commissioners and everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to testify again. My name is Katie Stoltz, and I'm joining here as a lifelong resident of the 9th and 7th congressional districts in Washington and South King County, and a concerned advocate with the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition. I'm specifically joining today really to first applaud the decision of the Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Walkinshaw to release new legislative maps that are compliant with the Voting Rights Act. And I, along with members of the coalition, also call on Commissioners Fain and Graves to do the same. And we really want to reiterate the points that we made in the 14th legislative district proposal that we submitted to call for keeping Yakima Nation intact with the Latino community of Yakima, and ultimately creating a map that is compliant with the Voting Rights Act. We are interested to see what comes from these new released maps, but we want to specifically thank Commissioner Walkinshaw for your historic leadership in releasing this study and making this a priority and voicing this as a specific priority for the commission this time around. I also want to lift up the importance of bringing the voices of the Yakima community specifically into this conversation. Encourage the commission to prioritize outreach and input after releasing the next set of maps. I specifically want to lift up that I know that there are some community members who wanted to testify today. Their public comment is pending right now. So if there's any possibility for being able to bring in some folks, since this is sort of a timely matter and this was just released. So specifically, if there's any way that Dulce Gutierrez, who had signed up, can testify today, I'd like to be able to lift that up and see if that's possible. And then as well as just to reiterate, please prioritizing outreach to those communities for after this next set of released maps. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Sean?
Chair, that will be the last person for our panel. Harold Hansen seems to be stuck or either has left the meeting and they're stuck as an attendee. So Harold, if you are here and are trying to continue to testify, please email us at comment@redistricting.wa.gov, or you can contact me directly, sean.murray@redistricting.wa.gov, and we'll make sure that your testimony gets heard. And that will be the end.
Okay, comments and questions from the commissioners for these folks on the last panel. Okay, I see that there was a cutoff for testimony this morning at 9 o'clock. I don't speak for everyone, but I believe there will be other opportunities for public comment before November 15. So please stay tuned, and as we schedule additional meetings, we will be sure to get the notices out so that people will be able to testify should they choose to do that. So I apologize that that we had a 9 a.m. cutoff and some folks didn't make it, but I don't believe this will be the last. All right. With that, I want to thank you, commissioners, for your service and for your time and attention this afternoon. To the members of the public who have taken the time to join us, thank you. Thank you to staff who have helped prepare for this meeting. And for Sean Murray, who provided tech support, Maria Garza, who provided admin support, including taking minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to lift up, I know a previous commenter mentioned that Commissioner Brady and I are committed to redrafting maps that reflect our requirement to draw a VRA compliant district in Eastern Washington, and wanted to let the public know that we are working on those draft maps now, and they should be released either later today or sometime early tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Commissioner Sims. I appreciate that. I would like to especially thank our Spanish language interpreters who joined us, and our American Sign Language interpreters who supported viewers on our Facebook page for interpretation services as well.